Welcome to The Breakdown, brought to you by PaintballAccess.com. I'm Matty Marshall here with Todd Martinez, and today we are going to be talking about San Antonio Xfactor. They are the World Cup champions, and what a great event it was for them. But, Todd, they did not have a great year, to be honest. You know, they started out 10th in the first event, barely made it into the Champions Division. You know, with you got the Champs Division, and then you got the Challengers Division. There's 10 teams in each division, and Xfactor barely made it, and were just cutting that razor's edge all year long. But way to totally redeem themselves. They come into the hardest event to win in the entire world, the PSP World Cup, and they took the victory. It was an awesome thing to see. Gave me chills, man, because we know all those guys. We know how hard they've worked. It's a great story.
Yeah, and we watched them come up through the ranks too. You know, winning a lot of these divisional events, then coming into the pro bracket. You know, and then the success that they've had over the past few years. But stop me if you've heard this before. It's not how you start; it's how you finish. You know,
I've never heard that before.
Never heard that before?
No, man, I've never heard that one before.
So Xfactor comes in. They start off. They get a 10th in Dallas. They go to MAO. They get a 6th. Chicago, they get an 8th. And then they go into, and the Chicago event, they lost all 4 games and then barely stayed alive. It was like you knew Xfactor was going to be playing in the relegation. They played in the relegation event.
Played against the Tauntauns
almost
in the relegation.
every event this year.
Yeah.
And it was just like, we watched them play, and you know, we realized how talented they are, but they were just plagued with penalties all year long. You know, small mistakes and penalties, and it just shows how you can have such a talented team and how much that hurts you.
Well, if you really want a breakdown, I mean, we're going to give you a little bit of a breakdown, obviously, here of San Antonio Xfactor, but you should definitely check out the Planet Eclipse show that they did called The Roster. They've done 2 seasons of it, actually, with San Antonio Xfactor, and this last one is pretty special because it does show how they came from one of the mid-level to, honestly, sometimes lower tier, at least to the Champions Division level teams, to finally coming through and winning. And the thing that's so frustrating about, or that was frustrating about watching San Antonio Xfactor in the early part of the year was that, you know, they have these amazing guys on that team: Grayson Goff, Archie Montemayor, Colt Roberts. I mean, there's ballers on that team, and they were haunted by penalties in the beginning part of the year. And that's one of the things that's documented actually in the roster, is that, you know, they had Zach Wake on the team, and they were very happy about him coming on, and I think we all were. We are all excited for Zach Wake to get a second or third chance or whatever it is at this point. And now he's going to get his 4th chance back on Infamous. That's a whole nother story. But he had come on to Xfactor, and they needed a solid one on the Snake side of the field. They had Billy Bernaccia, but you know, Billy can't play every point over there. And Billy was picked up on the team in 2012. And he struggled early on, but then sure enough, lo and behold, when Billy starts playing well, they get 3rd place at World Cup last year. So it seems like World Cup is just some good mojo for San Antonio Xfactor, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we said all year, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. All those tournaments where they had such low finishes, they were starting out really well in a lot of their games. They'd come out, start blasting teams, get up a couple points, and then they'd finish slow with penalties. And they'd start losing points, and they wouldn't be able to close out games.
Well, Todd, look at the Chicago event. They played Dynasty, Infamous, Vicious, and the Ironman, and they went 5-7. They lost 5-7 against Ironman. Then they lost 5-7 against Infamous, 4-7 against Vicious, and 4-5 against the Ironman. So we're talking about really close games there. And that's a heartbreaker, but that's what's possible. If you believe in your team, if you believe in the guys around you, and you work for something, that's why it's such an awesome success story to see San Antonio Xfactor win the World Cup, because they took 3rd last year. They headed into the offseason. They did a whole, they basically brought a bunch of like all these different guys in, and they went through a whole mini camp to try to pick up just a couple guys. Zach Wake was one of the guys that fought through that, and that's what's documented in the show. And then they had this mediocre year where they were penalties and losing these close games, and it just, nothing was going their way. But they believed. They believed in themselves. They believed in their teammates around them. They believed in the process. They believed in their coaching staff. And you really got to give your hats off to Coach Ryan Brand and also Paul Richards. You know, Paul Richards coming over from Tampa Bay Damage last year, and you know, things didn't work out with Damage, but Xfactor gave him a home. And that dynamic, that 2-coach dynamic, we really haven't seen before. And we actually did a podcast with Archie Grayson and Ryan Brand. You should definitely check it out on Paintball Access. And it was interesting to listen to him talk about that. Listen to Ryan talk about that, because that's a tough thing to do. I mean, you're a coach yourself. You coach Vicious. You've coached Infamous. I mean, you understand how that is. I mean, you have guys that help you. Chris Burgess helps you out. But imagine if you had another coach, like a main coach, in the division of labor there. That would be kind of tough.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Burgess, he does do a good job, help me out with whatever I can. But you have two head coaches, two head coaches, what you're getting at, that have, experience. Paul Richards does have that big game experience, and Ryan Brand, a former Xfactor player,
knows the team so well.
The team, knows his players, knows the roster, and really coming in and working with Paul Richards to be able to put that together. But I really think that the lesson here, Matty, you said it, for all you young players out there. It's all about believing. Mm-hmm. It's all about attitude. That's actually where it is. It's all about attitude. I remember watching one of Demetrius Ninos's interviews at World Cup, and he's there with his broken hand, and he's expecting not to play, but then the coach is like, "Hey, I need you to get in there," and he was like, I just came to do what I need to do to help my team win, and my coach believed in me, and he put me in there to go do a job.
And he had cut his cast off just in case they needed him, that he'd be willing to play. Because when I talked to him about that injury, I'm like, yeah, you broke your hand. It was the same broken hand injury that Brandon Short had that kept him out for Dynasty in the beginning of the year. And he was, I'm playing 100%. I don't care. I'm cutting my cast off. I am playing 100%. And as a young guy like Dimitri, I mean, I'll tell you what, I can't speak highly enough about Dimitri. He's a young guy, but he comes off much older than he is. I don't know where he got that seasoning from, but when you hear his paintball story, then it kind of comes to light, and you can understand. So I can totally appreciate him being ready to go, and also understanding that, hey, maybe you're not going to get the reps, because he's one of their 5 top-ranked guys.
Well, as a young guy, you get that attitude. Attitude is a reflection of leadership, the leadership on the team from the coaches down, and what I was getting at is, like, you look at Archie Montemayor, the whole season, he never wavered, always believed. Colt Roberts, look at Colt Roberts' interviews. These guys never gave up. They always believed in what they were doing, in their program, and their talent as a unit. And, just to go through what they did, all the struggles, all the penalties, and then have that opportunity, because they were almost knocked out of World Cup.
Yeah, they made it.
They were this close to getting knocked out of World Cup.
They went 2-2 in the prelims and just squeaked in the very last part of the day, just barely squeaked in, and then they go up against some really solid teams. They play Heat in the semifinals, beat them 7-6, 1 point against the defending world champions. Then they go play Impact in the finals, in a game that didn't look like it was going their way until Impact got some penalties. And I mean, it was definitely really close, but Impact beat the brakes off of Xfactor in the prelims.
Yeah, but you just have to continue to believe. You have to continue to believe and continue to fight that whole time. At any point, they could have given up. Anybody, the coaches, the players, they could have given up, but they didn't. They kept fighting throughout the whole season, throughout the whole prelims of World Cup, and beating teams like Houston Heat and Impact to win the world title. It just shows, that if you have a good attitude and you believe in your team and your chemistry and what you're capable of, that anything's possible.
Yeah, and it does come down to that. I mean, if you don't have that inner understanding of what's capable and you're working towards that and trying to fulfill that potential, then you're never really going to get there. And Xfactor never lost that, and that's such an amazing thing to see and to talk about even, and I'm so happy that we're getting a chance to even tell this story and that we got to see that happen, because, Xfactor for 2 years now has been fighting to reinvigorate their team, to get that fire burning again. I mean, they've won tournaments in the PSP before, but it's been 6.5 years since that last win with pretty much the same core guys. And they did lose some guys, that lost some players, some guys kind of quasi-retired for a time and came back. Archie left and then came back. I mean, but now I can't wait to see what Xfactor brings next year. I hope they get a little more consistent, but now that we've seen what they're capable of when everyone's playing well, and they got such a good team performance from everyone. I mean, yeah, Dimitri didn't play great in the points that he played. He had a broken hand. He's going to be that kid's going to be amazing one day. I don't know when exactly it's going to happen, but he's already pretty solid. I mean, he was ranked 62nd overall for the year. But you know who really played great for them was Scotty Kemp. You know, Scotty Kemp went out and was destroying people at World Cup and was playing great on that D side of the field and holding it down, helping Colt Roberts over there, who's been such a soldier over on that side of the field for them forever. But to see Scott Kemp step up, I mean, a year ago, Scott Kemp didn't really have a home. You know?
cut from the World Cup.
He got cut from the Ironman at World Cup. He didn't get cut. He got sat, and then he left. He was like, no, this is BS. I'm out of here. And so he left the Ironman, got picked up by Infamous. You guys gave him a shot when you
I was like, get that guy.
Yeah.
I was like, get him.
He's a champion. Get him. He's a vet. Get him. So you guys brought him.
We didn't get to keep him.
He didn't get a lot of spins, but then he was like, well, what team do I want to go for? But then, and you can see it on the rosters, and then he shows up, plays, tries out essentially, but they, already knew they kind of wanted to pick him up. But he's, Scotty's a great guy. He's a good human being. You want to talk about hard worker. I mean, he's a fitness trainer, so there's no one works harder than Scott Kemp does. And then, all year long he was okay. He wasn't lighting the world on fire, but then he just rolls into World Cup and just
blazing.
Talking about when the spotlight's on and the most stressful situation you can get, he starts having a tournament, and it was really cool to see. But there was a lot of guys on Xfactor that had tournaments at World Cup, so that was awesome. So. Yeah, San Antonio Xfactor. I can't wait to see what San Antonio Xfactor is going to bring for 2014. So let's head here to the GI Sports Spotlight. The top 5 players statistically for San Antonio Xfactor in 2013 for the season. First up, Archie Montemayor, ranked 9th overall, and then followed by Grayson Goff, ranked 45th overall, and then Todd Morrow, Colt Roberts, and Dimitri Ninos. And you can see, because they struggled all year long, I mean, Archie had a really good season. And what's crazy about Archie, I mean, he's ranked 9th overall, Todd. He played 201 points for that team. Archie, and this is the 2nd year in a row where they have just ridden Archie. And we've only been keeping stats for 2 years, so I'm sure it happened before that. But Archie is just one of those solid guys. Another guy, and then Grayson Goff, Colt Roberts, they both get a lot of spins. I mean, a lot of pressure is put on Grayson Goff. A lot of pressure is put on Grayson Goff and Colt Roberts on that team.
As well it should be, because those guys are the guys that want to be on the field. And I was thinking about this the other night, and I was like, you know what? I think out of all the players in the league last year, the guy that pulled more points out in clutch situations, being in a 1-on-2 or a 1-on-3, had to have been Archie Montemayor.
Yeah.
He had to have been the guy. I mean, this is unofficial, but I mean, I swear I can't think of another player that was in more 1-on-1 situations and 1-on-2 situations than Archie Montemayor. And stuff like that's just, it's really hard to quantify, what that does for your team when you're about to lose a point and then one guy comes back and brings that point back. It does so much for momentum. You get the point just for the overall feeling in the pits, for the coach, for what he can call. It's crazy how big of a factor, Archie really is on that team. But Grayson Goff and Colt Roberts, I thought they really did a good job of stepping up this year and playing as many points as possible and being solid, being alive. I thought Todd Morrow actually had a really fantastic World Cup.
Well, Todd Morrow only played 60 points all year long. And, compared to, say, Colt Roberts' 180 or Archie's 201, he's not getting the reps that these other guys are getting. But, obviously, if Colt Roberts is ranked 3rd out of the entire team, 51st overall. That's not bad. I mean, he's, that's kind of like a Nick Sloviak type thing. When you get out there and you get your reps, well, I mean, teams need depth. If you don't have depth, you're never going to contend for titles. You're never going to win tournaments. You can't just have 5 guys out there killing the entire time. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, you can have those. Like there's a couple teams occasionally that will peak and they will do that. But when you get a guy like Todd Moore out there who can play at a really high level, getting his reps and doing well, then that definitely helps the team out.
Yeah. And then Dimitri Ninos, the rookie coming in, doing work for them.
I'm telling you, I'm calling him, man. I don't know how long it's going to take, but Dimitri will. I don't want to put any pressure on him. But, it's funny because I was talking to him before he actually came out and practiced and ended up staying at the house I live at, and so I was kind of talking to him, and then since then I've been talking to him a little bit. So I'm like, look, man, heading into World Cup, before I found out he broke his hand, I was like, hey, I don't want to put any pressure on you, but I'm expecting big things out of you, and everyone else is too. And he's like, oh, oh yeah, laughing like, oh, no pressure. I was like, well, welcome to the top levels of the game. This is how it works. And I was like, but don't think about it as pressure. Think about it as wind at your back, pushing you forward to where you need to get to. And he was like, all right, yeah. And I think that to me, I mean, if you ever talk to this kid, like, he's definitely got a good head on his shoulders, and I think that he's going to be, we'll see. It's completely up to him, but you know how it is. You were that way, man. You meet these younger guys, and like some of them, there's something about them. There's something about them, the way they play, the way they look at the game, the way they're composed and handle themselves. And Luis Munoz was like that. Plays are vicious.
Absolutely.
And you meet these guys and you're like, I don't know how long it's going to take you. It may take you 5-6 years. It may take you a year. That is completely up to you and how hard you work, but it's in there somewhere. Find it, kid.
Find it. Show us.
Yeah.
We're watching.
Yeah, we're watching. So thank you guys here for tuning in to the breakdown of Matty Marshall with Todd Martinez. Congratulations, San Antonio Xfactor, the 2013 PSP World Champs. See you next time.
How many countries I've visited, how many miles you've traveled,
how many paintballs you've shot at different people,
how much baby powder I've used, how many hotels we've trashed,
how many places I've driven,
how many guns I've gone through, how much I love the game.
All the times that you had to tell your family that you couldn't be there for this or that because you were going to play paintball.
How many friends I've gotten out of it.
That's just why I love paintball. That's why I love paintball.
That's why I love paintball. But that's why I love paintball.
Massive opportunities, both for the sport of paintball and for your business. If we are successful in taking our sport to another level, unite with Paintball Access in our quest to elevate paintball and broadcast it to the world. There are advertising packages available for any size business. Join us. Advertise with PBA and help us change the sport for the better forever.